Two things I want to talk about real quick. One is I sent a newsletter this morning with a prompt to try to help people think about what it might feel like to have one day to live and what you might write if you had one day to live. And it's one thing to think about that and say, okay, if I had one day to live, what I want to say. But it's another thing to play a game and use your imagination and get yourself feeling like you have one day to live. And I don't know how to do that for anybody, but we all have imaginations. And as Dr. Sarah tells us, it's the highest form of thinking is creativity. I wanted to just, in case you guys hadn't seen it or you don't look at that, I would have wanted to bring it up here as a possibility for a a great writing prompt because it's very clarifying to think about, okay, I've got maybe 1 hour to live and I've got to write something. What would I want to say? How would I want to say it? You don't have to then go and publish that, but you might. There's a there's a book that I like about flow, flow states. It's called Superman or Becoming Superman or something like that, or Finding Superman or something. It's actually kind of old, so it's probably a little bit outdated because there's a science to flow and they're always studying it. And flow is that state where you get in the zone where you can do things you didn't know you could do. I had a basketball game one time. I was playing intramural sports in college where I like could not miss a shot. This is very rare for me. I couldn't miss a shot. I fell down on my back and I shot and I made it. Like, I just could not miss. And it was just one of those things where you knew you were in some kind of state. And I have that happen when I write sometimes, sometimes when I preach, sometimes in a conversation, and you just kind of know you're being carried along. And wherever the spirit takes over and science takes over and works together, I don't know. But I do know in this book, it talked about one field that is constantly experiencing the most broken records. Whatever they thought couldn't be done is done, and then in a year, someone does it 4 times as difficult. They said you can't do 3 flips off the diving board, then in a year, someone will do six. And the reason is because in extreme sports, you have the perfect combination of a very difficult concrete goal and it's a matter of life and death. So the danger that you might die, I've found out a couple of times in my life that I could mimic physically a state using my imagination so that I could benefit from something that didn't happen as though it happened or as though it were happening. For instance, I had to have a hard conversation with someone one time. I didn't want to do it. It was going to be very costly, emotionally, possibly relationally. And I imagined the conversation and I got very, very scared and uptight, and my adrenaline started to flow. And I had the conversation and I said what needed to be said. And the person reacted in my imagination the way I imagined that they would. And then I did not die and gave it a happy ending. It changed me. Before that, I wasn't going to be able to have the conversation. But after that, I was a different person. I was the kind of guy that has those conversations and doesn't die. Imagination is such a powerful thing, and action is so powerful to change who you are fundamentally, chemically, that you can imagine action that changes you. And you can imagine situations like your death and you've got an hour to write the most important thing that you could come up with. But I think the trick is you have to really feel it. You've got to get the sensations in your body and your mind and your spirit that you would. And that's just we're scratching the surface of science, I think, because I don't know anything except my experience. I couldn't tell you why this is working, but it works. And I've heard people say that the brain doesn't know the difference between reality and fiction sometimes when it comes to those kinds of things. Um, so that's one thing. I I don't know about you guys, but I have a massive difference in the writing that I do in a good state, in a sharp, focused flow state versus what I do not in such a state. And I really don't have time for the one that's not as good. I mean, it just doesn't it just it's so vastly different that it's completely useless to me. The other thing that I wanted to bring up is something a project I'm going to start that I hope that you can benefit from. If not, it'll at least be something for my newsletter, but maybe it's something we can benefit and hear from. One of my favorite sports figures of all times is John Wooden, the basketball coach. Do you guys know anything about the basketball coach John Wooden from Indiana?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's the winningest college coach maybe of all time. At least at one point he was. I mean, when he was leading the UCLA, they won like eight they went like 8 years undefeated or something ridiculous like that. It's so ridiculous that anytime I tell people, they make me doubt it, and I have to go look it up again to make sure that it's true. And he coached like he had Kareem Abdul-Jabbar on his team and guys like that. So he coached a lot of like future NBA players. But he was just this unassuming old man. I think he was a Christian, and he was just very, very into uh, the fundamentals and practice. And how you practice is how you're going to play. And what you practice matters as much as how you practice. And he was a master at breaking down the elements of the game, the component parts, and teaching the players to play each part, uh, as perfectly as possible. So, do you know what they did the first day of practice? The first thing they did was he gave them a lesson on how to put their socks and shoes on and tie their
Yeah.
shoes properly. And so, if that tells you anything, then you've got your dribbling. And I played basketball in high school, and in the place where it wasn't cool at all to do that, a small Texas town where there was one popularity ladder, and it was football and cheerleading, and basketball was like welcome to the B club. But um, we would spend a lot of time dribbling, a lot of time shooting, a lot of time catching, a lot of time throwing, and that was that was way, way boring. And you wondered why you were doing it, and all you ever wanted to do was scrimmage. But a good coach would make you wait as long as possible to actually start putting it all together. So think about writing. What would be dribbling? What would be putting on your shoes and tying them? What would be shooting? What would be catching? What would be passing? What would be the component parts that would be worth practicing to become a great writer?